I knew it. I shouldn't have been invited here tonight. You should have included me out. Because I don't play the popular game, and it is a cruel game where we pass the hat after the sermon and collect fines for wrong thinking. You have heard that one, haven't you? You thought wrong, so now you pay. Underneath the soft music and scented candles is a courtroom. The sick person seated at the defendant's table, the mind wearing the black robe, and the sentence written out in symptoms. The bailiff is shame, and he is always on duty. Let's say it plain. This modern superstition manifestation as moral courtroom has broken more hearts than most diseases. It makes you the criminal, the juror, and the executioner, then calls it spirituality. Do you think the God self of us keeps a little ledger tallying edgy thoughts like an accountant? 2 times 2 equals tumor, 2 times 3 equals fever. Do you think reality is that petty? Or do you think, perhaps, that we have twisted something tender and holy into a whip to scourge ourselves? When the disciples pointed at a blind man, they were very modern. Master, who did sin, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? And Jesus answered, neither hath this man sinned nor his parents. John 9:2-3. There it is. I don't have to quote a shelf of books. Judge not that ye be not judged, Matthew 7:1. Yet we sit in that inner courtroom and pass sentence on our own body because we loved poorly on Tuesday or doubted on Thursday. Beloved, you cannot heal while the gavel in your head keeps falling. You cannot be both condemned and free. I want to upset your furniture a little, but only the furniture that keeps you sitting in the dock. The thing called disease is not your private failure. There is something impersonal operating a tide of material suggestion so universal that we breathe it as easily as air and never notice. We will speak of that tide as we go, but for now I ask only this. Stop accusing your mind. Put down the robe. Step out of that role. There is therefore now no condemnation to them which are in Christ Jesus. Romans 8:1. Not later now, not when you have reupholstered every thought now. I had a woman at my door, let's call her Ruth, who whispered, I know why this lump came. I was angry at my brother. I manifested it. She had already held her own trial, already handed herself 30 days in the cell of fear. I asked her to do something impolite to her theology, refuse the verdict, not by bravado, not by hysteria, not by screaming affirmations at the sky, by quiet listening. Be still and know that I am God, Psalm 46:10. We sat in that hush where pity cannot chatter and guilt cannot posture. We withdrew reality from the picture, not denying it, simply refusing to anoint it as law. The air changed before anything else did. Tears came, but not the hot tears of self-accusation. The cool tears that wash a window so the light can get in. Healing began where the blaming ended. Now, do not hear this as license for laziness. I am not offering a bathrobe and slippers to the ego. I am promising you a reframe that removes personal guilt without excusing complacency. Because when the gavel drops silent, dominion speaks. Not the domination of a frightened mind over its own thoughts, but the recognition of God as the only power and presence. From that recognition flows a workable stance for prayer, not mental force, not mystical gymnastics, but the steady turning, again and again, from impersonal suggestion to God awareness. If healing begins anywhere, it begins here. Relinquish the superstition that your sickness is a personal indictment of your thoughts. Come out of the courtroom, approach the altar within. You are not a case to be tried. You are a consciousness to be awakened. And in that awakening, the sentence called shame is commuted not by your merit, but by the nature of God who does not accuse. We named a tide, and I promised we would point to it so plainly that you could stop hating yourself for getting wet. No, I didn't bring a pocket watch to swing. I am not here to trance you deeper. I'm here to say with the apostle, O foolish Galatians, who hath bewitched you? Galatians 3:1. There it is, bewitched, hypnotized, strong language for an invisible pressure that pretends to be normal life. Universal hypnotism is nothing more than the mass suggestion that life is in matter, that bodies are the authority, that aging is a law, contagion is a sovereign, heredity is destiny, and supply has borders like the little red lines on a child's map. It is the world agreement that shouts through textbooks, whispers in mothers' worries, grins in advertisements, and nods at you from the newsstand as if to say, of course this is reality. Everybody knows it. Do you see the mercy in naming it universal? If the fog drifts over the whole harbor, are you a defective captain because you feel damp on your face? If the radio crackles with a station you did not choose, are you the composer of the song, Beloved, your mind did not invent the fear stream. Your personality is not the architect of Adam's dream. The serpent hisses through collective suggestion, and God's voice still asks, who told thee that thou wast naked? Genesis 3:11, not God, not the God self of you. Then why take delivery as if the parcel had your initials stitched in gold on the ribbon? This is the beginning of gentleness without indulgence. You did not do this to yourself. You are not guilty of authoring the lie that knocked at your door. Make this distinction and you are halfway home. The personal mind is not the factory of these messages. It is only the doorway where the world knocks. If you have a door, something will knock. That is all. Do you condemn the doorbell for ringing, or do you decide whether to open? When a headline startles you, when a twinge in the body sings a sad little aria, when an old family tale wags its ancestral finger and says, we all get this at 45, recognize the visitor. Universal hypnotism is impersonal suggestion, no personality behind it, only the ancient momentum of life and matter. In that recognition there is already light. God is light, and in him is no darkness at all. 1 John 1-5. Where light is recognized, shadows stop pretending to be people. Now, because it is impersonal, we refuse to arm wrestle it personally. We do not fight our mind. We are not going to turn the skull into a battlefield as if clenching the jaw could enforce peace. That is how hypnotism feeds. It sells you a mirror image and gets you arguing with it. No, the spiritual move is simpler and far more royal. Withdraw reality from the appearance and return to the one power. I am the Lord, and there is none else. Isaiah 45:5. If there is none else, what second power is disease? What co-sovereign is heredity? What armed deputy is age? It is the Spirit that quickeneth, the flesh profiteth nothing. John 6:63. We are not fixing flesh by better thoughts. We are standing where spirit alone is life, and in that standing the appearance loses deputized authority. Practice this recognition in small moments and large ones. A cough in the night, a rumor in the office, a report with numerical frowns, each is an invitation to remember. Impersonal suggestion is not my personality, not my selfhood, not my God. Do not dramatize. Do not pity yourself for feeling the gust of it. Smile, perhaps outwardly cold-blooded and inwardly overheated with love, and let the clear word rise. No divine law here. Then always turn to the presence. In him we live and move and have our being. Acts 17:28. If I live and move and have my being in God, in what element does disease live and move and have its being? In suggestion only, in story only, in the sleep of humanhood, where we dream that matter authored us and can therefore edit us. Universal hypnotism is a weather pattern over humanhood, not a stain in you. Die daily to the temptation to personalize it. Die daily to the courtroom and to the sheriff called shame. Step out of the fog by not calling it yours. Step into God awareness by letting one power be sufficient. When you do, you will find that the door, which once felt like a target, becomes an altar, and the knock at that door becomes your cue, not for conflict, but for quiet listening, in which the spell is recognized for what it is and loses the only power it ever claimed, your belief. Now let me put you in the witness chair for a few moments, not to shame you, but to extract the thorn that has stayed in your heel since Sunday school. Do you think God is distributing tumors on a timetable? Do you think Spirit authored infection because your Tuesday was unkind? Do you think the Christ is withholding breath until your creed is flawless, metering oxygen like a stingy landlord? Do you think the father, mother who feeds sparrows and arrays lilies dispatches pain as a teaching aid and then blames you for bleeding on the lesson? If a son shall ask bread of any of you, that is a father, will he give him a stone? Or if he shall ask an egg, will he offer him a scorpion? Luke 11:11-12. And if you, being human, know better than to slip a scorpion into your child's lunch, what blasphemy, yes, let's use the true word, is it to imagine. God stocks a cabinet of stones and scorpions, labeled karmic consequences, and sends them out by parcel post to our bodies. Let's go deeper, because I know the modern trick. You have saved God's reputation with a sleight of hand and still kept the whip. No, God doesn't punish, you say. My thoughts did. But what God do you suppose, wrote the statute, the thoughts are supposed to be violating? Whose cosmos, exactly, runs on this moral slot machine, 3 doubts and out? Self-blame tries to let God off the hook by making your mind the sheriff. But the theology beneath it is unchanged. Somewhere there is a throne from which pain is authorized. Somewhere something holy has consented to evil. Every good gift and every perfect gift is from above, and cometh down from the Father of lights, James 1:17. Show me the verse that says, and every tumor too, it is not there. God is light, and in him is no darkness at all. 1 John 1-5. At all. Not in faint pencil, not in fine print. So if it is not God, and not the God self of us, who signed for this parcel at the door? Not a villain, not a saboteur in you, only a sleepy doorman called humanhood, who heard the knock of universal hypnotism and opened without checking the sender. That is all. Responsibility, then, is not the hiss, I caused this, but the sober, liberating, I consented often innocently to the world's belief, and consent can be withdrawn. You signed without reading. Now you can unsign. Choose you this day whom ye will serve. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Joshua 24-15. Servants of one power do not co-sign leases with contagion. They quietly return the package marked undeliverable. No such resident as mortal author of law at this address. And I must be stern with kindness here. You may feel guilty, but guilt is not repentance. It is hypnotism, wearing religious clothing, parading as virtue while fastening the collar tighter. Guilt leaves you staring at yourself. Repentance turns you Godward. Godly sorrow worketh repentance to salvation, not to be repented of. 2 Corinthians 7:10. The master did not swell the courtroom when they hauled in the woman taken in adultery. He dissolved it. Neither do I condemn thee. Go and sin no more. John 8:11. Not wallow, not diagram your depravity. Go and cease consenting to the belief in separation that births all adulteries of the soul, the most seductive of which says, life is in matter and law is in symptoms. Therefore, take the stand again. Let's answer this time from your God awareness. Do you think love manufactures the very thing it is invoked to heal? Do you think life issues death, warrants to educate life? Do you think truth authors a lie to make truth more precious? Refuse the premise and you are halfway healed. This is not mental bravado. It is the humility that empties the dock and crowns the altar. When the next knock comes, and it will, because there is a door, let the inner word be clean and impersonal. No author but God, no law but spirit, no assignment of evil to me or mine. I shall not die, but live, and declare the works of the Lord. Psalm 118 to 17. Then turn, always turn, be still, and know that I am God. Psalm 46 to 10. In that knowing, the false theology collapses, the self-accuser falls silent, and the only voice left to obey is the one that cannot punish, because it is itself the whole of love. If you will let me be bolder yet, I will ask a deeper question than who sent this. I will ask, where does it live? Not in theory, where, in your felt experience, does it claim residence? My body, you say, my history, my family line. Do you hear the pronouns? Ownership, title deeds, genealogies written like mortgages on the flesh. That whole vocabulary is humanhood, the sense of a self apart from God, a private life lodged inside a bag of skin with a last name and a medical file. Disease needs that address. It needs a mailbox labeled mine. Without that address, it wanders like a letter with no street and no city. Humanhood is the only place discord can seem to fasten, because humanhood is the only stage large enough to host the dream of separateness. The God self, call it the Christ of you. The I of I am knows one life, one infinite identity, indivisible, self-complete. I live, yet not I, but Christ liveth in me, Galatians 2:20. In that knowing, where would you pin a label that reads defect? On whom would you hang heredity? In what corner of omnipresence would you stash a private law? When Paul says, ye are not in the flesh, but in the Spirit, Romans 8 to 9, he is not describing a trance. He is pointing to the actual address of being. Spirit is the country. Humanhood is the passport you carry only because you think borders are real. Now I can almost hear the mind. But the ache is in here. The report mentions this organ, this blood, this family. Yes, in the dream it does. Just as in a nighttime dream, a wolf chases you and your feet feel very real on very real ground while your heart thunders like a drum. Where is the wolf? Not in the bed. Where does the chase live? In the dreamer's temporary self-picture. Do not be insulted by the metaphor, be liberated by it. Scripture does not pamper the picture. It says, I die daily, 1 Corinthians 15:31. Die to what? To the claim that there is a separate material organism called me, subject to private laws and ancestral winds. That is the death that births life. For ye are dead, and your life is hid with Christ in God, Colossians 3:3. Hidden, not endangered, not balanced on a pin, hid with Christ in God. Let me give you a picture you can hang in the hallway of your morning. It is a body if you are outside of it, using it as an instrument. It is a tomb if you are living inside it. Step outside consciously, quietly, not with theatrics, and use the body the way you use an automobile. You do not climb into the car and then forget you are a driver. You do not live in the garage and call the sedan yourself. You step in, steer, step out. If it squeaks, you do not accuse your soul of sin. You oil the hinge, or better yet, you check whether fear has been riding shotgun and rattling the door. The point is not indifference to care. It is indifference to identification. The driver is not the door. And here is where it becomes simple enough for a child and too simple for a theologian. Your work is not to perfect humanhood. Do not varnish the tomb and call it resurrection. The program of polishing thoughts, improving heredity, bargaining with years. Who asked you to be a better Adam? Set your affection on things above, not on things on the earth, Colossians 3:2. Affection, attention, devotion on the above, which is another word for within, for the kingdom that does not share a wall with decay. Attend there, abide there. The fruit of that abiding is spontaneous order in the instrument, not because you force the flesh to obey, but because the only law acknowledged was the life that is itself harmony. You will ask, how do I move from the tomb to the instrument? With the unglamorous, royal practice of identity. Begin the day not by checking the vehicle for dents, but by consenting to the truth. I am not in matter. Matter is appearing within my awareness as an instrument to serve God's purposes. Know ye not that ye are the temple of God, and that the Spirit of God dwelleth in you? 1 Corinthians 3:16. The temple is not the deity. It is the site of radiance. Live as radiance, and the walls will be cared for. Refuse the address of humanhood, and the parcel labeled disease has no doorstep left to land upon. So, beloved, do not be surprised if the spell tries to make it personal. My pain, my fate, my tribe's sentence, that is its only strategy. Smile with that outward cold-bloodedness that refuses drama, and that inward fire that adores God, and let the pronoun fall. No mine here, only thine. No separated organism here, only the life that lives itself. And as you die daily to the small address and stand as the God self, you will find that the wolf loses ground at once because the dreamer is waking, and what once felt intimate and accusatory becomes what it always was, an impersonal suggestion seeking a host and finding none. Christ in you, the hope of glory, Colossians 1:27. In that Christed identity, freedom is not an event, it is the nature of being revealed. Now that you have stepped out of the tomb and are using the instrument, let me take away your badge and gun, because many of you became sheriffs the moment I mentioned identity. You went home and deputized yourself to monitor every thought, frisk every feeling, and haul into court the first flicker of doubt lest it manifest. Beloved, that is not prayer, that is panic. That is turning the skull into a surveillance state and calling it devotion. The Master did not say, take many thoughts, audit them hourly, and you shall be safe. He said, take no thought, but seek ye first the kingdom of God. Matthew 6:31, Saint Joseph. No thought, no anxious hoarding, no mental bookkeeping. Seek the kingdom, seek presence. There is a universe between those two instructions, and in that space the entire strategy of healing changes. Here is the trap in brief. The more you fight a thought, the more oxygen you blow on its ember. The more you measure a symptom, the more you lend it your tape measure. The more you rehearse the story, the more lines it learns. Hypnotism feeds on attention, your attention. It is a street performer that cannot juggle without your gaze. Watch it and it thrives. Turn to God and it drops its pins and sulks away. Do you think it an accident that Peter walked on the water until he saw the wind boisterous and then began to sink? Matthew 14:30. The wind had been there all along. Only the gaze shifted. So it is with suggestion. The serpent hisses only as loud as you lean to hear it. If you stand back outwardly cold-blooded, inwardly overheated with love, its forked tongue becomes a shoelace. I am not proposing positive thinking. That is only the human mind writing nicer captions under the same pictures. I am speaking of spiritual recognition, God awareness, where the picture is quietly dethroned by presence. Be still and know that I am God, Psalm 46:10. Not be still and edit, be still and know. Let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus, Philippians 2-5. Let not force, not wrestle, not issue citations to rogue thoughts driving 5 miles over the speed limit of holiness. Let means yield. Yield means withdraw your consent from the pageantry of appearances and stand in one power. I am the Lord, and there is none else. Isaiah 45:5. If there is none else, the second power you have been arm wrestling exists only as your consent to wrestle. Now, I must say the paradox plainly, or you will miss your exit. The more zeal you bring to getting rid of fear as a personal project, the more personal you become, and the more personal you become, the more believable the disease picture appears. That is why fear seems to multiply when you attack it. You are feeding the very root self as separate operator, self as fixer of worlds. There is no fear in love, but perfect love casteth out fear. 1 John 4:18. Love casts it out, not you. Love, recognized as the nature of God present, unseats fear because fear cannot stand where no second power is acknowledged. So die daily to the heroics of improvement. Die to project management of the mind. Rise in quiet consent to the mind that was in Christ Jesus, and let love do what only love can. What, then, is the practical move when a suggestion struts through like a loud cousin at a wedding? Do not chase it with a broom, smile by the door, offer the impersonal no divine law here, no author but God. Then turn, always turn. Turn to the felt actuality of presence, not words about God, not slogans, but the hush in which you know, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want, Psalm 23:1. The sheep do not analyze wolves, they follow the shepherd. Follow attention on presence, not on problem. Sit a moment, even in the marketplace of your day, and let the heart lean back into its source. No drama, no bravado, just a quiet shifting of weight. As you do this again and again, you will find that thoughts lose their stage, symptoms lose their microphone, and what remains is the steady music of one life living itself where you had been busy fixing. You do not heal by policing thoughts. You heal by withdrawing reality from suggestion and abiding in God awareness until only God is believable. Let us bring the point from cloud to cup. The impersonal no is not a tantrum against the body, not a pious fist shaken at a lab report, not I'm not sick, shouted into the mirror like a pep rally. That is bravado, and bravado is only fear in dress clothes. The impersonal no is discernment, righteous judgment. As the Master named it, judge not according to the appearance, but judge righteous judgment. John 7:24. What is righteous judgment? It is the clear, unheated recognition. This appearance has no law, no intelligence, no divine source. It may knock, it has no credentials. It may pose, it has no authority. It may parade, it carries no seal from God. Therefore I will not bow, bargain, or brawl. I will quietly withdraw my yes. Denial says nothing is happening. Discernment says something is being reported to sense. I acknowledge the report while refusing to confer divinity upon it. Do you see the difference? Denial pretends not to hear the doorbell. Discernment answers the door, smiles gently, and says, no such resident, and closes it without a scene. We look not at the things which are seen, but at the things which are not seen. 2 Corinthians 4:18. We do not blindfold ourselves to the visible. We refuse to enthrone it. Outwardly cold-blooded, no panic, no pity, no personal fuss, inwardly overheated with love of God as all, love of the one before you, love of truth as the only atmosphere. That love is your insulation. It keeps you warm to God and cool to theatrics. Try it in the next small moment, because small moments practice you for large ones. A stab in the knee, a word from a friend, diagnosis, a name with syllables that like to frighten. Pause, yes, physically pause. Let the jaw, the shoulders drop. Now the word no, impersonal, untroubled, and clear. No divine law here, no mind in matter, no author but God. Then give your attention a home. This is not my life. My life is God. The Christ is the only activity here. I and my Father are one, John 10:30. Let that oneness be felt, not recited 2 or 3 breaths in which the heart leans back into its source. That is all. No argument, no stopwatch on symptoms, no checking the pulse of the picture to see if your prayer worked. We are not mechanics of matter. We are witnesses to spirit. You will be tempted to dramatize my poor body, my family's fate, or to rally, I refuse, I resist, I command, resist not evil, Matthew 5:39. Do not arm wrestle a shadow. Shadows do not retreat under shouted decrees. They vanish when a light goes on. Peace be still, Mark 4:39. Who said it? Not Peter in a panic, not the disciples in a debate. Christ's authority spoke to wind and sea, and the boat stopped groaning. Speak that way to the storm of suggestion. Peace, no divine authorization here. Be still. God alone is life and law. Then always turn to presence. Even 10 seconds of real turning will do more than 10 hours of inner litigation. When you are turned, you will find the tone of love rising of itself, and with it a clean impartiality that refuses to pity a mask or to hate it. Pity sticks you to the picture. Hate glues you there. Love liberates. When you say the impersonal no, you are not quarreling with biology. You are refusing to ascribe to it a mind it does not have. It is the spirit that quickeneth. The flesh profiteth nothing. John 6:63. Nothing, no intelligence, no initiative, no authorship of law. If in him we live and move and have our being, Acts 17:28, then anything claiming to live and move and have its being outside of him is a claim only, not a creation. Let the weak say, I am strong, Joel 3:10, is not swagger. It is identity saying what God is being, where you stand, not what Adam is pretending. Make it simple and practical. Let me hand you a pattern you can carry like a pocket psalm. Notice the report without flinching. Father, I see what the senses say. Relax the body's posture. The driver unclenches, the instrument follows. 3, state the impersonal no. No divine law here. No mind in matter. No author but God. Turn into presence. Be still and know that I am God. Psalm 46:10. Feel the knowing more than the words. Affirm identity, not as charm, but as fact. This is not my life. My life is God. The Christ is the only activity here. The Lord my God in the midst of me is mighty. Zephaniah 3:17, paraphrased. Move on in quietness. No inspection tours. No checking the symptom's temperature. Arise, take up thy bed, and walk, John 5-8. Walk, live as if God is the only life, because God is. Do this 100 small times, and the great times will find you already home. The impersonal no becomes not a trick, but a way of being, your steady refusal to grant divinity to what God did not author, your unwavering consent to love as the whole government here. No drama, no denial. Only discernment and the peace that attends the one who will not be hypnotized into bowing at a second altar. If I must be blunt, and I must, because your freedom is worth the discomfort, pity is the velvet rope around the dream, and you keep holding it for yourself and for those you love as if the velvet made it holy, pity is an agreement. Pity says, yes, you are a suffering mortal, and I will stoop down into that identity with you to prove I care. Do you think that helps? Do you think the Christ needs your collapse to confirm your affection? The love of Christ constraineth us, 2 Corinthians 5:14. Not the ache of Adam. The world calls pity compassion. Spirit calls it hypnotism with perfume on. It is a handshake with the premise we have just refused. It is attention magnification, and suggestion feeds on attention. Love is another substance altogether. Love is clear sight. Love beholds the truth of being while washing the feet of the picture that doesn't know its name yet. Love is insulated, not aloof, not cold in the human sense, but free of the sticky strands of emotional interchange that glue you to the mask. Put on the whole armor of God, Ephesians 6:11. Armor is not distance. It is insulation. You can stand in a fevered room and not contract its thought if your heart is clothed in one power. Outwardly cold-blooded, no panic, no pity, no gush that flatters the dream. Inwardly overheated with adoration for God and the Christ in all. In that stance you serve. Outside of it you sink together and call it bonding. Look at the Master, not at my adjectives. A leper kneels, an image designed to frighten the senses and extract pity as proof of love. And what happens? Jesus, moved with compassion, put forth his hand and touched him. I will, be thou clean. Mark 1:41. Moved with compassion, not with sentiment, not with a confirming nod that said, poor you. He was moved by God to reveal God. He touched, he did not cosign. He spoke from authority. He did not offer tissues and longer stories. He sent his word and healed them, Psalm 107-20. Word, revelation, presence expressed. That is love in action. The recognition of reality so vivid that the appearance has no stage left to perform upon. Apply it inwardly, or you will go on loving others badly because you love yourself badly. Self-pity is hypnotism turned inward and made intimate. It is the mirror persuasion that whispers, my case is special, my hurt is my identity. Do you think that whimper is holy? Why art thou cast down, O my soul? Hope thou in God, Psalm 42-5. Speak it to yourself with the same royal clarity you offer a friend. When pain pleads for your tears, give it neither your tears nor your scorn. Give it the impersonal no divine law here. And then turn, always turn. We love him because he first loved us, 1 John 4:19. Let that first love be your climate. In that climate, the lonely drama cannot breathe. Now, how does this sound when lived, not lectured? It sounds like this. I am not moved by appearances, but I am moved by Christ's compassion. Therefore, I can serve effectively. I enter the hospital room, the kitchen, the email, armored and tender-wise as serpents, harmless as doves, Matthew 10:16. I do not solicit a recital of symptoms as if more detail will produce more love. Let no corrupt communication proceed out of your mouth, but that which is good to the use of edifying, Ephesians 4:29. I listen with insulation. I refuse to add my sigh to the world's wind. I let presence be present. If words come, they are few and carry bread, not stones. And if action is given, I act. If silence is given, I keep it holy. The person before me is not a patient. The person before me is the temple of the living God. I behold that. I rest in that. I consent to that until it is the only sight in the room. You will be accused of hardness by those who mistake pity for love, perhaps even by your own sentimental self. Let them accuse. Charity never faileth, 1 Corinthians 13-8. But sentiment fails hourly. It exhausts and it entangles. Keep thy heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life, Proverbs 4:23. Guard it from pity's plea. Give love impersonal, universal, steady as dawn. In that love the spell cannot find purchase, because you have refused to validate the mortal picture. Stand fast, therefore, in the liberty wherewith Christ hath made us free, Galatians 5:1. Free from cruelty, yes. Free from sentiment, too. free to see God only here, now, and to let that seeing do the healing. Now we come to the part where most of us try to be saints until the thermometer speaks, then we vote human again. Let's not pretend. The spell exploits our habit of living inside the chassis, so I am going to say it as bluntly and as kindly as I know how. It is a tomb if you are living inside of it. It is only a body if you are outside, using it as an instrument. Get in to drive, get out to live. Use it, don't inhabit it as self. I die daily. 1 Corinthians 15:31 is not a line for mystic stationery. It is your morning commute. Translated into today's speech, it means each day I relinquish the supposed right to be a private organism with a private fate. Each day I refuse citizenship in Adam and receive again my only identity, Christ in you, the hope of glory. Whosoever will save his life shall lose it, the Master said. And whosoever will lose his life for my sake shall find it, Matthew 16:25. Lose what life? The body story is verdict. Find what life? The God, life is fact. Make it ordinary or you will never make it real. When you wake, do not rush to inspect the vehicle for dents. Begin by consenting to the driver. Present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable unto God. Romans 12:1. A living sacrifice is not a self-harm, it is a surrender of ownership, a handing over of the keys. Father, this instrument is thine for the day, drive thy roots. If there is fuel, we use it. If there is a stop, we stop. If there is maintenance, we apply it without making it a theology. We do not ask the windshield to tell us the weather of God. We clear it and keep going. Now, what when the dashboard lights up, when symptoms shout and the old sheriff in your skull straps on his gun? Here is where we die again quietly. Do not negotiate with the body as if it were master, lawgiver, or judge. No man can serve two masters, Matthew 6:24. Do not threaten it with scripture or bribe it with supplements. Neither bullying nor bargaining is prayer. Sit, yes, a literal sit will help, and let the shoulders drop. Acknowledge the report without bowing to it, then listen within for the Christ activity. My sheep hear my voice, John 10:27. One brief, clean inquiry. Father, what is true here? And wait in that holy emptiness 2 or 3 breaths until the hush answers not in syllables perhaps, but in a settling presence that reminds you one life, one law, one I. From that inner authority may come the impersonal no divine law here, and the gentle directive, rest, drink, call, walk, obey what love gives, refuse what fear dictates. Be very sure of this, or you will bruise yourself with piety. This dying is not grim asceticism, not contempt for flesh or a vow against blankets and bread. For your Father knoweth that ye have need of all these things, Matthew 6:32. Feed the instrument, wash it, let it sleep. Only do not worship it, fear it, or use it as a scoreboard to measure God. You do not weigh the sun by your shadow at noon. You do not weigh God by your pulse at dawn. Glorify God in your body and in your spirit, which are God's, 1 Corinthians 6:20. Glorify, make God visible through sane use, quiet joy, and non-attachment, not through superstition dressed as care. Practice the in and out until it becomes as natural as breathing. Unconsciously assume the instrument for service. Hands be instruments of blessing, feet carry peace, tongue speak only edification. Out just as consciously release identification. I am not the hands, I am the life animating them. In again before a task, out again when the task is through. You do not sleep in the glove compartment between errands. Do not live in the ribs between prayers. The more gently you alternate, the less the spell knows where to knock, because the address keeps shifting from mine to thine until mine disappears. If you need a single sentence to carry in your pocket, take the Master's and let it breathe in you. Take no thought for your life, what ye shall eat, nor yet for your body. Matthew 6:25. Take no thought does not mean take no breakfast. It means do not enthrone the body story as oracle. Let the Christ in the midst order your day. And when the body attempts a verdict, a pang, a number, a legacy whispered by family memory, answer as a witness, not a defendant. The Lord my God in the midst of me is mighty. I am here to serve, not to submit to a second power. Then get on with the business of love. Arise, take up thy bed and walk, John 5-8. Not to prove a point to matter, but to live from the point that is beyond matter. Daily practice is nothing more glamorous than this steady disidentification. The body is an instrument. Use it with reverence and freedom. It is not your selfhood and never your sentence. When you forget, die again. When you remember, live lightly. Outwardly cold-blooded to the theater of symptoms. Inwardly overheated with adoration for the one who alone lives you. And in that rhythm, the tyrant of the body becomes what it always was, a servant that works best when you refuse to worship at its altar and instead abide where only God is believable. Let the peace of God rule in your hearts, Colossians 3:15. There is your ruler, and under that government, even the vehicle rides quieter on the road. Now that you have agreed to live outside the chassis and let the Christ do the driving, let us twist that Bible upside down. Yes, upside down, and let the red words fall into your lap like living coal. The superstition that God is the cosmic bookkeeper who tallies your thoughts and mails you a diagnosis as a late fee must go on to the ash heap with other idols. Do you think it's the God self of us, I must ask you, that manufactures disease and assigns it to you on Tuesdays to improve your character? Who taught us that? Not the Master. The punitive God is Mosaic retaliation smuggled into wellness culture with a diffuser and a spreadsheet. You did wrong, so you suffer. You thought wrong, so you manifested it. Beloved, that is not Christ. That is commerce disguised as holiness. Listen to the red letters as atmosphere, not as moral pressure. What is the air Jesus breathes into the room? Be not afraid, Matthew 14:27. Again, fear not, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom, Luke 12:32. Do you hear a threat in that? Do you hear a God with a bat behind his back? Or do you hear an atmosphere in which fear has no oxygen and blame has no chair? The healing begins when the weather of your soul changes, when you sit under that sky and permit it to be true. Good pleasure, not grudging permission. Gift, not wages. Kingdom, not sentence. Bring in the woman taken in adultery, dragged by theology into the square, a perfect prop for punitive religion. And what does the Master say? Neither do I condemn thee. Go and sin no more. John 8:11. Neither do I condemn thee. That is not leniency. That is reality. Condemnation doesn't heal. Love reveals. Revelation dissolves the picture because it withdraws the only thing keeping it standing. Your belief that judgment has power. If all power is given unto Christ, Matthew 28-18, then none is given to condemnation, none to self-accusation, none to the anxious theory that your thoughts authored yourselves. Let me put a light under a favorite text of the blame economy. As ye sow, so shall ye reap. True in the field of Adam, irrelevant in the kingdom you have just entered, because Christ fulfills the law. Hear his own refrain. I will have mercy and not sacrifice. Matthew 9:13. Mercy over transaction. Love over ledger. Or behold the blind man and the disciples panting to assign cause. Who did sin, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? The Master cuts the rope on that entire apparatus. Neither, but that the works of God should be made manifest in him. John 9:2-3. Neither your files nor their file. The only file that matters is God made manifest, love showing itself as sight where a story claimed authority. We must expose how subtle the old retaliation sneaks into spirituality. It smiles and says, I'm not judging you. I'm just explaining the metaphysics. Low vibration attracts disease. Do you think the shepherd scolds the sheep for tremors in a storm? I am the good shepherd, he says, and know my sheep, John 10:14. The shepherd does not whip the lamb into courage. He floods the valley with presence, and the tremor spends itself in safety. My peace I give unto you. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid. John 14:27. Not another assignment, an impartation. Peace is substance. Courage is climate. So here is our simple habit, and I beg you to take it up as you would take bread. Carry the red letters with you, yes, in your pocket or your purse. Not to win arguments at lunch, not to prove piety in the mirror, but to breathe the air of them until your inner weather changes. When a symptom speaks, instead of rummaging in the attic of self-critique, take one line and hold it gently. Neither do I condemn thee. When anxiety mounts a pulpit in your ribs, answer with, be not afraid. When self-blame drags your history into the square, let forgive 70 times 7, Matthew 18:22. Dissolve the courtroom, beginning with yourself. Read a sentence, and then be still, not to add commentary, but to let the sentence read you, to let the Christ in the midst say, it is I, be not afraid. Matthew 14:27. Until fear cannot remember its script. Do not make a hobby of quotations. Make a home for presence. The red letters are the doorway through which you re-enter the Father's house, where there is no second power, no God of punishment sharing the throne. Judge not, that ye be not judged, Matthew 7:1, is not a rule to appease a critic. It is a removal of the battery from the machine that keeps the dream running. When you refuse condemnation, you unplug the lights on the stage where illness performs. When you abide in fear not, you deny hypnotism its drum. When you let mercy be the government, you discover what we have been saying in every way we know. God is the only power, and in that one power, the punishment story evaporates like mist before the sun. Then, almost shyly, health appears not as a prize you earned, but as the natural brightness of a room where love turned on the light. When the diagnosis shouts, your first temptation will be to shout back or to audition for God with a perfect prayer, chin up, chin down, the right words at the right tempo, as if the infinite grades on diction. Beloved, pause the performance. Drop the curtain. When thou prayest, enter into thy closet and shut thy door. Matthew 6:6. Shutting the door is not only exiting a room, it is ending the audition of the personal self. Let the shoulders fall. Let the breath lengthen of its own accord. Say within, not as a speech, but as surrender, I can of mine own self do nothing, John 5:30. That is not failure. That is the doorway. In that admission, the actor leaves, the stage quiets, and the real prayer begins. Now, identify the claim impersonally, without drama, without ornaments of fear or flowers of self-accusation. This is universal hypnotism presenting as my condition, not my private sin, not my special curse, not the alarm clock I forgot to set 30 years ago. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, Ephesians 6:12. We are not fighting tissues or timing. We are recognizing suggestion and withholding our agreement. Judge righteous judgment, John 7:24. There is an appearance reported to sense. It bears no seal from God. Say it inwardly as you would mark a letter. Return to sender with a calm hand. No divine law here, no mind in matter, no author but God. Then stop talking. Do not polish the sentence to prove devotion. Silence is your next word. Turn now, not part way, not with a backwards glance to the one power, God is. Let those two words be a country you enter, not a charm you recite. I am that I am, Exodus 3:14. Abide there. God is life, God is law, God is the only activity. Be still and know that I am God. Psalm 46:10. Let the stillness do more than your vocabulary can. If thoughts ask for a hearing, give them no gavel. Let the felt actuality and unforced peace, a softening in the chest, a sense of largeness that does not need explanation become more authoritative to you than the report. In quietness and in confidence shall be your strength, Isaiah 30:15. You are not arm wrestling shadows. You are consenting to light. Wait. This is the part we skip because we are in a hurry to succeed. But the shepherd's voice is not a trumpet in a marketplace. It is often the still small voice, 1 Kings 19:12. My sheep hear my voice, John 10:27. Do not demand syllables. Be available to assurance. It may come as one word, peace. It may come as a simple certainty, fear thou not, for I am with thee. Isaiah 41:10. It may not come as language at all, but as a settled altitude, a quieting of the inner weather you know is not self-produced. Do not measure it with a stopwatch or with your pulse. Receive. And when it arrives, however, gently stand there, a breath or two longer than you think you need to, that the climate may take. Then rise and continue your day from that height. Arise, go thy way, Luke 17:19. Do not descend to inspect the valley. Carry the climate, let it do the inspection for you. And because hypnotism is not a single drumbeat but a rhythm section, be consistent without making a contest of it. Return as often as the noise returns, 10 times before breakfast, if need be, not as a battle, but as re-entry into what is. Pray without ceasing, 1 Thessalonians 5:17, does not mean chant until you are hoarse. It means turn, and turn again, lightly, faithfully, until turning is habit and habit is home. If fear barks at noon, turn. If numbers parade at 3, turn. If a friend's sorrow leans hard at dusk, turn first within, then outward in service from insulation, not from pity. Each turning says the same thing in silent ways. God is. There is no second power. The rest is weather, and I am not its barometer. You will be tempted to check the symptom for applause. Resist the urge. Take no thought, Matthew 6:25, for outcomes, and the peace will have space to govern. If action is given in the hush call, rest, walk, obey the Christ word, and do it without superstition, without bargaining. If nothing is given but quiet, keep the quiet. Cast all your care upon him, for he careth for you, 1 Peter 5-7. Care transfers in the turning. This is the prayer that heals because it is not a performance but a presence, not mental force but holy consent. Step by step, you move from impersonal diagnosis to God awareness, from noise to listening, from checking to abiding. Do it simply. Do it repeatedly. Let the red letters be in your pocket if a sentence helps you make the turn, but let the turn, not the sentence, be your aim. In time, the seesaw slows, the altitude stabilizes, and you discover what we have been insisting all night. When you stand in one power, the universal spell forgets your name and wanders off. Peace remains, and under that government, harmony appears not as reward, but as the natural fruit of abiding. Abide in me, for without me ye can do nothing. John 15:4-5. Abide and watch the nothing dissolve. And now the part where many of you nod vigorously in church and then look at me sideways in the kitchen. But I did turn, I did abide, the peace came, and then at 2 a.m, fear climbed back into the bed and started preaching. Yes, and you concluded, I failed. The prayer didn't take. I must have done it wrong. Beloved, that seesaw is almost the signature of the early path. The start of the spiritual life is, as I have said, without apology, a state of self-deception. We taste a victory, and the humanhood in us puts on a cape and says, I did it. My affirmation fixed it. I am now spiritual, perhaps even a practitioner by Friday. Then the fear returns, the symptom whispers, the account balance croaks, and our new cape trips us at the ankles. That is not failure, that is exposure. The light is not hurting you, it is revealing where you are leaning on a very fancy broomstick labeled me. Do you think the God self of us is grading you on uninterrupted Zen face? Do you think heaven stamps your card, come back when you can hold your altitude for 9 days running? Or could it be that the very return of fear is the mercy that punctures the pride bubble before it hardens into religion, your private religion of my method, my mastery, my results? He must increase, but I must decrease. John 3:30. Decrease what? The personal performer who tries to leverage God to decorate a human biography. Here we meet the black night. Do not dress it in drama. Do not sell tickets, but do not avoid it when it comes. The black night is the moment when your cleverness retires, not by decision, but by exhaustion. The affirmations do not feel like levers anymore. The old spiritual jazz doesn't swing. You cannot heal to prove yourself or to silence your critic. I can of mine own self do nothing. John 5:30 moves from a brave sentence on your refrigerator to the last sober fact you can stand on. And when you stand there, emptied of personal stratagem, something undramatic and holy happens. The Christ activity in the midst takes the room. My grace is sufficient for thee, for my strength is made perfect in weakness, 2 Corinthians 12-9. Not your perfected strength, his perfecting strength revealed as your weakness stops auditioning. Consider Peter on the water. He steps out, and while he looks at the master, law operates. When he admires the waves, down he goes. We preach, keep your eye on Jesus, and then secretly boast, look how steady my eye is. The spray hits, the wind shouts, and down we go again, not to drown, but to expose the one who was boasting. And in that descent, the same voice sounds, not scolding, but rescuing. Immediately, Jesus stretched forth his hand. O thou of little faith, wherefore didst thou doubt? Matthew 14:31. Not why did you fail, but why give audience to a second power? When the personal audience thins, fear has no theater. Perfect love casteth out fear. 1 John 4:18. Because there is no me left to cherish the terror or to wear it like a medal. So when fear returns, treat it not as a verdict, but as a revealer. Let it show you where the private healer self is still chiseling its initials into the temple wall. Let the chiseling stop. Into thy hands I commend my spirit. Luke 23:46 is not a line for saints on holidays. It is the daily posture of those who are through with spiritual pride. Blessed are the poor in spirit. Matthew 5:3. Not destitute in capacity, but emptied of claim. Ready soil where the kingdom sows itself without your supervision. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Psalm 23-4. The valley is shadow, the with me is fact. Fear returns to audition. You no longer run the theater. Sober comfort, then, not candy. If you feel stripped, you may be nearer the marrow than when you were triumphant with techniques. Do not measure altitude by goosebumps. Do not imagine that the absence of fireworks is the absence of God. Be still and know that I am God. Psalm 46-10 is often a night instruction. In that stillness, your identity shifts without announcements. I live, yet not I, but Christ liveth in me. Galatians 2:20. The seesaw slows, not because you got stronger wrists, but because the one pumping the board has retired. The spell loses its claimant, the fear loses its audience, and love, plain, patient, impersonal, governs. They that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. Isaiah 40-31. Wait not as delay, but as willingness to let the personal wind fall still, so the true wind may carry you. And then quietly you discover you are not trying to be unafraid. You are too occupied with God to remember the old part you used to play. If we have done anything honest tonight, it is to pull the plug on the oldest stage show in town, blame the man in the mirror, then call it piety. We laid it down at the door. Sickness is not your moral report card. It is the ancient fog of universal hypnotism trying to wear your name tag. We expose the hidden cruelty that keeps God on the witness stand as the author of trouble and refused it with the Master's own voice. Neither do I condemn thee, John 8:11. We traded the broom closet of humanhood for the open windows of the God self. I live, yet not I, but Christ liveth in me. Galatians 2:20. And we learned the texture of real love, not pity that tangles, but insulation that frees. And we practice prayer, no theater, no levers, only the quiet turn. God is. Be still and know Psalm 46-10. In that stillness, the seesaw slows. In that climate, fear forgets its lines. Let me seal this with a handful of questions that dismiss the usher who keeps trying to seat you back in the old show. Who is sick, God's being, or a belief parading through sense? God is light, and in him is no darkness at all. 1 John 1-5. Since light has no dark corners, where shall disease pitch its tent? Who is afraid, the Christ that is your life, or humanhood that dreams itself separate? Can the Prince of Peace, Isaiah 9-6, tremble, or only the mask that pretends a second power? And what power, tell me, can oppose omnipresence? If all power is given unto Christ, Matthew 28-18, how many remain for symptoms, verdicts, and astrologies of heredity? No one, no one, no one. Your work, then, is not to polish a personal mind until it glows like brass in the sun. Your work is to stand in God awareness, where the universal spell is recognized and loses authority. Stand, and having done all, stand. Ephesians 6:13. Die daily to the private actor who wants to earn a medal for good affirmations. Refuse condemnation of yourself first, then of neighbor and nation. Carry the red letters as you would carry a passport to your true country. Read a sentence and let it read you until the weather changes. Be not afraid, Matthew 14:27. Forgive 70 times 7, Matthew 18:22. Judge not, Matthew 7-1. Then close the book and live as if the ink were warm in you. Do not feed the hypnotism with pity. Feed the world with love that knows God as the only fact. Outwardly cold-blooded toward the drama, no flinching, no cooing. Inwardly overheated with adoration for the one who lives all. This is not hardness, this is clarity. Our heart must burn with joy for the Christ, not yearn with sympathy for the picture. The love of Christ constraineth us, 2 Corinthians 5:14. Means love governs us, insulates us, directs us. When you are summoned to help, enter your closet, Matthew 6-6. Withdraw reality from the report. No divine law here. And then let love tell you what, if anything, to do. Obey what love gives. Refuse what fear demands. Make it plain. Make it daily. Morning, hand over the keys. Father, thy life is the life here. Use this instrument. Noon. If the fog creeps up, turn again. God is 2 words more authoritative than 100 reports. Evening. Bless the world impersonally. Let no man be left outside your prayer. Pray for them which despitefully use you, Matthew 5:44, until your heart is a country too wide for enemies. And through the day, treat the body as you would your automobile. Jump in to serve. Jump out to live. It is a tomb if you live in it, an instrument if you live out of it. Money, marbles, God lets us play with use, share, and forget. Results, leave them where they belong. Cast thy burden upon the Lord. Psalm 55-22. Take no thought, Matthew 6:25. Beloved, you are not appointed to be the victim of the world's spell. You are appointed to witness its unreality in the light of one power. Greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. 1 John 4:4. Do you think that is poetry, or do you dare to let it be geography? Stand there. Let your calm be outward. Let your fire be inward. Let the peace of God rule in your hearts. Colossians 3:15. Until your very presence says without sermon, there is no second power here. Then walk quietly. Let your light so shine, Matthew 5:16, not as a searchlight to expose the sick, but as a sunrise that does not argue with the dark. Peace be unto you, John 20:19. Freely you have received, freely give, Matthew 10-8. And in that giving you will discover what every page of this night has been whispering. The spell loses its audience, the fog loses its ground, and love, impersonal, universal, unstoppable, remains as old.